Welcome to Talk It Out, the podcast where meaningful conversations take center stage. It's time to engage and connect. Today, we will be providing short but critical review of the book Weapons of Mass Delusion, When the Republican Party Lost Its Mind by Robert Draper.
Chapter 1. The Provocative Question. Have you ever wondered how a political party could lose its mind? Today we're diving into Robert Draper's intriguing exploration, Weapons of Mass Delusion, When the Republican Party Lost Its Mind. This compelling narrative promises to unveil the intricate machinations of a political titan's transformation. We're about to journey into the heart of the Republican Party, dissecting its metamorphosis and unearthing the factors that led to its present. So fasten your seatbelts and stay tuned as we dissect the chapters of this fascinating book. Chapter 2. The Ideological Shift. The first chapter lays the foundation for the entire narrative. Here, Robert Draper kicks off his exploration of the Republican Party's ideological shift by painting a picture of the party's historical context. He expertly weaves together the threads of the past, setting the stage for the transformation to come. Draper's initial introduction of the Republican Party's shift in ideology is both insightful and thought-provoking. He compels us to consider the party not as a monolithic entity, but as an evolving organization, shaped and reshaped by the tides of time and the pressures of the political landscape. He underscores this point with a quote that resonates deeply. The Republican Party, once a steadfast bastion of traditional conservatism, began to drift towards a more radical ideology. As we delve into the chapter, Draper's use of historical context is both illuminating and grounding. He reminds us of the party's roots in the fight against slavery, its championing of civil rights in the mid-20th century, and its transformation during the Reagan era. This historical backdrop provides a stark contrast to the party's current trajectory, highlighting the dramatic shift that has occurred. However, it's important to critically analyze Draper's interpretation. While he presents a compelling narrative, it's worth questioning whether this shift is as pronounced and unprecedented as he suggests. Is this radical ideology a new phenomenon, or is it the culmination of a long-evolving trend within the party? Draper's argument hinges on the former, but some may argue for the latter. Furthermore, while Draper's historical context is rich and informative, one might argue that he overemphasizes certain aspects at the expense of others. The Republican Party's history is complex and multifaceted, and while Draper's narrative is compelling, it's not the only interpretation. Despite these criticisms, Draper's first chapter successfully sets the stage for his exploration of the Republican Party's ideological shift. He provides a clear and compelling narrative that invites further scrutiny and discussion. And that's just the first chapter. There's a lot more to unpack. Chapter 3. The populist turn takes us deeper into the rabbit hole. As we continue our journey with Robert Draper's Weapons of Mass Delusion, When the Republican Party Lost Its Mind, we find ourselves in the midst of a seismic ideological shift. Draper talks about how the party, once a bastion of traditional conservatism, began to morph, adopting an increasingly populist and nationalistic stance. As we turn the pages, the author's words leap out, painting a vivid picture of the transformation. One quote in particular stands out. The party of Lincoln was becoming a house divided, its foundations shaking with the tremors of radical change. It's a poignant observation, capturing the turbulence and the internal struggles within the party. But what does this mean for the party and nation? Draper doesn't shy away from exploring the implications. He suggests that this shift, while invigorating for some, may alienate others, potentially causing a rift that could impact the party's unity and electoral prospects. Yet, it's essential to remember that Draper presents just one perspective. Other analysts might argue that this ideological evolution is a necessary adaptation to changing societal attitudes, a reflection of the party's willingness to evolve and stay relevant. But what about the impacts on the nation? Draper highlights the potential for a more divided political landscape, with increased polarization and less room for bipartisan cooperation. This, he asserts, could have far-reaching consequences on policymaking and governance, affecting everything from domestic issues to foreign relations. As we delve into this analysis, it's worth noting that Draper's work is not without its critics. Some may argue that his perspective is overly pessimistic, perhaps even alarmist. Nevertheless, it's undeniable that he offers a thought-provoking analysis, encouraging readers to critically examine the shifts within the Republican Party and their implications. So, as we close this chapter, we're left with more questions than answers. The plot thickens as we delve deeper into the book. Chapter 4, The Loss of Mind, is where things take a fascinating turn. In this chapter, Draper delves into the intricate maze of events and decisions that, he believes, resulted in the Republican Party's loss of mind. There's a heap of information to sift through here, so let's dive right in. A crucial point in this chapter revolves around the party's ideological shift. Draper traces back the roots of this transition, highlighting certain moments where the party strayed from its traditional conservative values. This is when he introduces the notorious quote, "It was as if they had traded in their compass for a weather vane." Essentially, Draper's argument is that the Republican Party started to prioritize political expedience over unwavering principles. He suggests that this metamorphosis was a considerable factor in the party's purported loss of mind. Now let's move on to a critical evaluation of these points. While Draper's narrative is captivating, remember that political parties are intricate organisms. They evolve, adapting to shifts in societal values, demographics, and global trends. Yes, the Republican Party has indeed experienced an ideological shift, but does that necessarily signify a loss of mind? Maybe not. It could just as well be a strategic evolution in response to changing circumstances. Draper's stance, although enlightening, can be perceived as somewhat oversimplified. It's all too easy to condemn a party's ideological shift when viewed from a fixed, unchanging lens. However, the world of politics is rarely so clear-cut. It's worth acknowledging that the weapons of mass delusion that Draper mentions are not unique to the Republican Party. Many political parties across the political landscape and globally have been known to employ similar strategies. All in all, Chapter 4 offers a stimulating exploration of the Republican Party's evolution. Whether you concur with Draper's conclusions or not, his analysis most definitely ignites an engaging debate. The pieces of the puzzle are starting to fall into place. Chapter 5, The Reactive Politics. Previously regarded as the most controversial part of the book, Chapter 4. Here, Robert Draper delves into some of the most contentious claims about the Republican Party, which have sparked a fair share of heated debates. Draper begins the chapter by dissecting the Republican Party's ideological shift over the years. He posits that the party, once a bastion of fiscal conservatism and traditional values, has gradually morphed into a political entity that is more driven by populism and less by principled conservatism. This, he argues, is where the party ostensibly lost its mind. He states, and I quote, "The Republican Party, once a platform of fiscal prudence and restrained government, has surrendered its credentials to the whims of populism, often at the expense of the very principles it once championed." Now, this statement is a hard pill to swallow for many, and not without reason. Critics argue that Draper's assertion oversimplifies the complexities of the party's evolution and fails to account for the diverse range of ideological perspectives within the party. Furthermore, Draper contends that this shift has resulted in a party that is more reactive than proactive, more concerned with opposition than proposition. He paints a picture of a party that is caught in a cycle of reactionary politics, driven more by what it stands against than what it stands for. However, this perspective has been met with opposition. Critics argue that Draper fails to acknowledge the proactive policies proposed by the party, focusing instead on the more controversial aspects of its politics. They contend that his portrayal is skewed and fails to provide a balanced view of the party's political strategies. And despite these criticisms, one cannot deny that Draper's analysis in this chapter is thought-provoking. It compels us to question and critically evaluate the evolution of political ideologies and the implications of these shifts on the broader political landscape. It's clear that Draper is not afraid to ruffle some feathers. His bold assertions and critical analysis certainly make for an engaging discourse, one that continues to stir debate and prompt introspection on both sides of the political spectrum. Chapter 6: Summary and Conclusion. So what can we take away, Weapons of Mass Delusion? Robert Draper's book provides a compelling narrative of the Republican Party's evolution. He delves into the party's ideological shifts, its internal struggles, and the influential figures that have shaped its trajectory. Through these elements, we see a party that has undergone profound transformations, leading to its current state. In our analysis, we've unpacked the 4 main chapters, each offering a unique perspective on the party's journey. Draper's arguments are well supported, drawing on an array of sources and his own keen political insight. He presents a picture of a party that has, in his view, lost its way, becoming a vehicle for mass delusion. The book's impact is significant. It forces us to consider the implications of these changes, not just for the Republican Party, but for the broader political landscape. It raises questions about the future of bipartisan politics, the role of media in shaping public perception, and the consequences of ideological rigidity. Draper's work is a relevant and timely addition to our understanding of American politics. It prompts us to look beyond the headlines and soundbites, to delve deeper into the dynamics that drive political parties and shape our political discourse. Whether you agree with Draper's analysis or not, Weapons of Mass Delusion certainly provides food for thought.